Welcome back to Cinemaflex Music Picks. I'm Dave, your host with most least, the best in the West. He rode the West, she rode the rest. Lust in the dust? I don't know. It's too late at night. It's so late at night. It's the morning. That's right. It's tomorrow. Not for you. Whenever you watch this, it's today for you, but for me, it's tomorrow from when I should have done this, which was yesterday, which is your possibly today. I think that clears everything up. Can you tell I'm feeling a little tired at the moment? Firstly, I want to answer a question that someone posed. In fact, no, skip that, reverse. Let's answer one little thing that I didn't even know this was a thing until I started making videos. Did you know that you can post comments without them being publicly viewable? I didn't know that until I started getting these comments with a little lock next to them, and people would be commenting on my videos, and I'd be like answering them, and nobody else sees them. It's like a whole private YouTube. They get to talk, you know. They could be saying anything. They could be passing secrets to the Russians. Oh, that doesn't jive so well anymore, that reference. Secrets to the Taliban, yes. Oh, no, they're back. Secrets to the French? Yes, let's go with the French. The Napoleonic Wars are well over. Yes, I do get a little weird when I'm tired, don't I? And I'm a little bit weird at the best of times. Don't tell the others. They'll have me committed again. But the second thing, see, I'm not that tired that I forget that I was about to say something before I said something else. The second thing is someone asked in one of these lot comments that nobody sees except for me and them, what the hell this thing is behind me? Well, I'm going to answer that before we talk about this. So skip ahead until you see me hold this up again if you don't want to hear a very short story. A very eccentric looking man, and again coming from me, was throwing out this. And I said, what's that? It lives up the block. What's that? And he said, it's a canvas of a grotesque. Now, those are just a combination of words which, you know, come hither, you know. For me, that's, you know, you, sir, have my undivided attention. So, he said, ever since I've taken in this canvas, I've had nothing but bad luck. Oh, and I do love to tempt fate, because there's no such thing as luck, is there? So I said, are you really throwing away this grotesque? Or would you be averse to me just taking it? Or do you need to know that it's going to be destroyed? And he said, as long as it's out of my path, you can have it. And I said, thank you. He said, thank me later and see if you do. This video is about the Philadelphia story, by the way, in case I haven't mentioned that. But yeah, look, and that's just the top of it. You should see what the rest of it's like. It's absolutely insane. I don't know, it's like a perverse madness. And it appeals to me gravely. I adore it. It's sitting right behind me because I need to, every time I walk in the room I want to see it. I need to find the perfect place for it. I just, I don't know, it appeals to me. It reminds me of happier times. When I was a grotesque on a canvas. It is late. 4 minutes 19 seconds. Philadelphia Story came out in 1940. Was directed by the great George Cukor. That's George Cukor, not George Cuckold, which is an entirely different George. Entirely different type of video. George Cuckold was hired by Ms. Katharine Hepburn. I can't really do Katharine Hepburn. I could do the Parkinson's thing, but that's just offensive. Michael J. Fox has kind of lightened his up on it, but I don't think I can impersonate people with Parkinson's. I've got a good joke about it, I'll tell you that one time, you know. Davey After Dark, well, it's After Dark actually. But Katharine Hepburn, 1938, was labelled box office poison. There was this incredibly sexist list published of these actresses, and they were all actresses. They were called box office poison, and it was going to finish their careers. And one of the films in which Katharine Hepburn was cited as being box office poison, as in, if you put her name on the box office, people will actively avoid it because she's been forced down your throat right through the 1930s. One of the films in which she was deemed to be box office poison was a flop from RKO called Bringing Up Baby, one of the greatest comedies ever made. Archetypal, screwball comedy. One of the greatest performances of Cary Grant's career, one of the greatest performances of Katharine Hepburn's career, and pretty much the invention of the, what would they call her in the modern parlance, the manic pixie dream girl, where she just floats through existence freely and gaily while everything around it, you've seen this kind of trope. I think What's Up Doc with Barbra Streisand and Ryan O'Neal, pretty much a remake. So Katharine Hepburn was box office poison. So she said, what am I gonna do to get my reputation? But this is the old Katharine Hepburn talking for some reason. What am I gonna do to get my reputation back? She sounds more like Mr. Magoo. Oh, you've done it again, Magoo. She says, what am I gonna do to get my reputation back? Why? I'll do the old Thespian thing and I shall tread the boards. So she found this play, The Philadelphia Story, and she said, I'll do it for bugger all but a percentage of the profits. It went on to be an absolute smash. Joseph Cotten was in it with Van Heflin before he was big star Van Heflin, although he was always pretty crap as an actor. One of those post-war actors with no personality, if you ask me. And you're asking me, that's why you're here. So Katharine Hepburn's acting career had been somewhat revived, but she still hadn't proved it on the screen yet, and that's what matters to Tinseltown, isn't it? So she says to her agent, well, I'll sell the rights to, because she'd purchased the rights at this point, such a success as she made of the actual story. I'll sell the rights to the play to MGM for 250 grand, which is undercutting myself, again, as long as I have a really good cut of profits. Director approval and star approval. And MGM, run by Louis J. Mayer himself back in the day, said yes to that, because they were getting such a good deal. 250 grand, what could they possibly, well, 250 grand. So, and I'm sure somebody would go see even if it was a flop. So Katharine Hepburn chooses her male leads, and the studio concur with her first choices. Her first choices were Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy, with whom she had an on-again, off-again relationship, and some nights they were on again and off again and on again and off again a few times. Oh, this really is an After Dark episode, isn't it? Oh, hot and bothered. Spencer Tracy in the sack. Katharine Hepburn. Anyway, so it was all good to go. Clark Gable, Spencer Tracy. Wait a minute, they both got movies coming out, they can't do it anymore. Whoopsie daisy. So MGM say, well, okay, you had your chance, and we still think you're poison. So how about, well, they probably didn't phrase it quite like that to her. How about we get, what about that guy last year that played Mr. Smith in that Washington movie? Remember him? Yeah, how about he plays the part that Van Heflin played, yeah? And then we can get, I don't know, Cary Grant. So, to mitigate her box office poison, they surrounded her by the biggest film star of the time, Cary Grant, although they never blamed him for the failure of Bringing Up Baby, and Jimmy Stewart, the new megastar after Mr. Smith. So, the film is going to be directed by George Cukor, which could never have happened if Clark Gable had been cast, because they famously butted heads massively on Gone with the Wind, which led to George Cukor being fired from that production by David O. Selznick, and replaced by Victor Fleming, making Victor Fleming the guy who directed The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind in the same year. Not a bad little achievement. I've had productive years in my life, but didn't quite manage that. I mean, I think I'm impressive doing a Jimmy Stewart movie every day for 31 days. And I watch all these, start to finish, even if I've seen them 100 times. But I didn't produce Gone with the Wind and drag Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz. Anyway, let's go on the actual movie itself. I don't think we need to talk too much about it because it's a beloved classic. But, there's a few things that I've got niggles with. It is a screwball comedy. Yesterday I said that I think You Can't Take It With You is not a screwball as it's labelled as, but this is a screwball comedy, and it's in this subgenre of comedy from the period, which are remarriage movies where a couple has split up and then is going to come back together. And we might think that's an odd thing for a whole subgenre to be based around, but you have to remember the Hays Code was in full effect here. We're talking late 30s, early 40s. So the Hays Code is in full effect. People are, let's say, slightly afraid of things like the House of Un-American Activities Commission and, etc., etc. So things are very straight-laced. So you couldn't get away with terribly much on screen without being called a subversive and 100 times worse just for, because people didn't like you. They just had to name your name. We won't get into all that. I'm sure we will at some point because that's a fascinating period. But the subgenre of the remarriage allows you to get away with stuff that you couldn't do for an unwed couple. So an unwed couple having these kind of flirtatious moments, double entendres, these rather sexualised innuendo throughout the movie wouldn't fly. But if you say that they are married, they've just separated, and but they want to get back together, for some reason that was completely acceptable because they had been married, so presumably I was going to say shared a bed, but it's the Hays Code, so they always slept in separate beds, remember? Now, did they have babies? Did they jump into a single bed together? I was going to say something about sliding down the banister, but I won't lower the tone of this. PM me if you want to know the reference to sliding down the banister. So that's how they get around it. So think movies like The Awful Truth with Cary Grant. Think His Girl Friday with Cary Grant. In fact, Cary Grant's kind of the king of this, isn't he? When you think about it, he's kind of the king of the remarriage movie. But Katharine Hepburn wasn't averse. She did Adam's Rib with Spencer Tracy, on again, off again, where they are a bickering couple that might be separating, might not, that kind of frisson. And that's kind of the tone of the film. The plot of the film does not matter a jot, because there is no plot. Jimmy Stewart's a reporter, he's a writer, but he's essentially been designated a reporter even though he doesn't want to cover the society wedding of the year. Katharine Hepburn to this boring guy, and her ex-husband Dex, there's some bizarre names in this film, is played by Cary Grant. He's crashing the wedding and he's brought these photographers along. He's going to make it as embarrassing as possible for his ex on her wedding day. I wonder what will happen in that plot line. Those other films where Cary Grant convinces the women that yes, although we don't get on, we annoy each other every single conversation we have, and at the start of the movie I punch you in the face, we should really get back together. So Cary Grant is, yes, C.K. Dexter Haven. Was this a Marx Brothers movie? Tracy Lord is Katharine Hepburn, and Tracy Lord, isn't that an 80s porn star or something? I seem to remember Tracy Lords was like a B-movie actress who was in porn. I don't know how I know these things. It's just film knowledge, folks. You can't take it away from me. The best name for me, though, because it reminds me of everybody's favourite Home Alone star, Jimmy plays Macaulay Connor. And I'm going to remind myself to say Connor, not Culkin. But yeah, Dinah Lord, played by Virginia Vidler. She's perhaps the most annoying brat you've ever seen in a movie. But well, let's have a. This is like a Criterion edition, and you'd be forgiven if you look through this, if you think that the romance in the film is actually between Jimmy and Katharine Hepburn. But to be honest, the romance in the film is between everybody and themselves, because contrary to popular belief, I don't think this is a particularly romantic comedy at all. I think it's a great comedy, but I don't think there's anything romantic about it. I think these people are desperately unlikable. The reason my thumbnail, should you be wondering, was me literally holding my nose up, is because that's how they all talk. They all have this Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Eleanor, they all have that annoying, so desperate to be English. You think, why did you bother leaving? Why don't you go back? You're more English than most English people. Cary Grant's English, literally, never left England until he was about 22, and they're more English, her family, than he is. Cary Grant, everybody's favourite transatlantic accent, Cary Grant. What was that accent about? And he had it earlier on as well. It's not as if it took him years to develop. He came off the boat talking like that. Off the banana boat, slow boat from China, or Leicester, I suppose, or Archibald Leach as he was born. But yeah, from the minute he stepped off the boat, there he is, Cary Grant, fully fleshed out. Bizarre. So we kind of contrast, and you can tell here the contrast is between Cary Grant as the ex-husband and Jimmy Stewart as the journalist who's writing the story on the. And is he going to think, is Jimmy, who doesn't want to take the assignment because he doesn't like these society types, is he going to learn actually they might have a bit more about them? Yes. And is Cary Grant going to learn that he should be with her, and she's going to learn that she should be... Yes. But again, ultimately, they're all horrible people, with the exception... And I'm glad this is Jimmy Stewart month, so I can freely say this, with the exception of Jimmy Stewart, who is, along with his photographer, who he actually treats like shit at quite a few points in this movie as well, so I'm not giving him a free pass here. Good old Macaulay Culkin. Connor. Oh, the Connors, that's the family in Roseanne. He's like a cross between all these great American institutions. So he is able to kind of step outside the movie almost and look around and see that these people are all terrible snobs. And then Katharine Hepburn calls him out for being a kind of reverse snob, which I'm not sure holds up, but regardless, the script's terribly witty, so these kind of criticisms don't really matter, because you're always about 5 seconds away from a completely charming moment, regardless of the fact that it opens with domestic violence, that everybody's unlikable, that nobody seems to have any actual love and compassion about them. It seems to just generally be, who can I annoy for the rest of my life, or until we fight and you throw me out again. Jimmy is the closest to a real person in the film that we really get to know, but again, he's not. They're all comedic devices. They're there to play a very specific part. They're very much gears in the comedic machine to make it go round. And it does. It goes around perfectly. It's very well oiled. And speaking of well oiled, here's a transition for you. Jimmy gets to play one of the great drunk scenes in film history, where the night before, why am I still doing this with my hand? It's kind of relaxing actually. Yeah, don't look at the hand, look at the hand. He gets to play one of the great drunk scenes where it's the night before the wedding, and Katharine Hepburn, I'm just going to stop now, is still deciding whether or not she might go with Jimmy Stewart, might go with Cary Grant, might go with the man that, oh yeah, she's actually said she's going to marry. But we like them. But we do. That's a strange thing, because they're played by such charming actors. I'd actually say Katharine Hepburn is not quite as charming in this, and that's kind of odd because she's the one that made it the star vehicle. So she's probably the least likeable character of the main cast. At least you can understand the rest of them, and they've all got vulnerable moments. She's pretty horrible throughout to everybody, and yeah, leads everybody up on a merry. I was going to say something a bit unkind about Miss Hepburn there, but I don't think I shall. I don't want to go with Spencer Tracy, haunt me. Yeah, who am I kidding? He'd probably drunkenly fall over in a stupor. I wonder if ghosts can get drunk. Must research. But there's not really, again, there's not a plot to this film. So really, you may think that this video is a late night ramble from me, or early morning ramble, and that's true. You're incredibly right to say so. I wouldn't be watching if I were you. But that kind of sums up this film. Things just happen because they need to happen for a comedic moment to happen. The drunk scene is terrific. Jimmy gets to play it as a dress rehearsal for a film that I've avoided talking about, and I'm not even saying the word because it's a coming. We're nearly at the end of the month, and there's a drunken film. What could it be? I don't know. Jimmy gets to play this one scene completely spaffed. I feel like that's two very different things, and one's rather dirty than the other. Spiffed. I'm going to go with spiffed. Yes. He gets to play spiffed, and does so remarkably well. And there's a fantastic moment where he hiccups and Cary Grant says, "Excuse me," which wasn't apparent in the script, and they both, you can see it is left in the movie, they both are trying so hard. You can almost see them biting the inside of their cheeks, trying not to burst out laughing. And it's great. That's the kind of moment that just pushes these kind of things from a fun watch to this is terrific. Because again, I mean, to read this Criterion's description of it, a fast-talking screwball comedy as well as a tale of regret and reconciliation. No, it's not. Nobody shows regret. Not at all. They show the same regret that I would have if I loaned somebody, I don't know, this Rolling Stones CD and they didn't bring it back for a few days. It's just the fact that someone else has it and you want it. That's a bit regretful as it gets. There's no real pining, there's no great love affair here. Love affair, we should cover that at some point as well. Yeah. Cary Grant, top of the Empire State, but yeah, we'll do all these now. Cary Grant month coming next year. But there's no what was the other word they used? So we've got reconciliation. Yeah, there's none of that shit either. If reconciliation just means turning on a dime and deciding to do the exact opposite of what you've been saying the whole time you're going to do, and have given no indication that you actually want to do that, then that's reconciliation. So basically, Criterion are just trying to turn this into an art house Criterion movie when it's a fucking screwball comedy. Just let it be a screwball comedy, Criterion. It doesn't need to be often just written off as a screwball comedy. This is really about regret and reconciliation. Fuck you. Stick your C's up your ass. So that was a bit of a nasty thing to say about some people who do some wonderful film curation. But I think we all know what the C stands for in Criterion. Well, Criterion, I suppose. I was going to say continue that thought later. But yeah, Jimmy Stewart won the Oscar for this. Let's go on to that bizarre choice. He won the Best Actor in the 1940 Academy Awards. Now, I have no issue with Jimmy Stewart getting awards. I'm doing a whole bloody month of Jimmy Stewart movies. I love him. I love Jimmy Stewart. I adore his movies. He did not deserve the Best Actor award for this. And don't listen to me, listen to Jimmy Stewart, because he told everybody he did not deserve the Best Actor for this. He said at best, he should have been supporting actor, with Cary Grant nominated solely as lead. But really, Jimmy wasn't even going to turn up for the ceremony, because he said it was going to be Henry Fonda's time. And Henry Fonda was a shoe-in to win as Tom Joad from Grapes of Wrath. And he should have been. And Jimmy said, as I alluded to in Mr. Smith yesterday, 2 days ago now, because, you know, late night, early mornings, that he felt like this was a make good for not giving him the Oscar for Mr. Smith. So it's not quite a lifetime achievement. He's only 32, but it's a kind of what they used to do the very early Academy Awards for a body of work. You know, you could win it for 2 films in the same year. You know, just your year rather than the one film. It's like they gave him the award for this, but you know, underneath it says, but really it's for Jefferson Smith. Luckily, Will Smith wasn't around to come on stage and punch somebody out for winning the wrong award. I don't know. Oh, actually, when you think about it, Will Smith probably wouldn't have been allowed on stage, and they'd go, crikey, can you imagine? Hat McDaniel just won the Oscar for Gone with the Wind the previous year, broke that race barrier down, and she wasn't even allowed to the party afterwards because it was held in a hotel for whites only. Yeah, good luck with that one, Will Smith. Anyway, this has been, as the film is, a rambling, late-night, shambolic mess. And absolutely wonderful for it. I thought I'd just let the moment sink in now. You know, I think a silence is quite underrated, especially when you've been talking for 27 minutes and not really one keen thought has left your mouth yet. But I very nearly made a mistake as well. I was about an hour into another film. That's why this video is so late, to be honest. It was about an hour into another film and I realised I don't think this is the right film at all. Denzel Washington's a lawyer defending Tom Hanks, who's just been fired by his company for contracting AIDS. It's a Philadelphia story, but apparently it's not the Philadelphia story, it's just called Philadelphia. And I'll be honest, I did think, well, it's an awful late film for Jimmy Stewart, this. But, yeah. Tom Hanks dies at the end of Philadelphia. It's not one of his funny ones. Good soundtrack though. Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen. The Philadelphia Story. I've got no segue out of this. What shall I do? Oh, it's too late to play the harmonica. Oh, I know. I'll just go marry Katharine Hepburn. Because that's what happens at the end of this. Just out of nowhere, let's all marry Katharine Hepburn. So long, folks. Love and mercy. Stay safe out there. Love and mercy again. Bells are ringing. Katie, I'm a coming. Good night. Good night, Vienna.